Hi everybody. We're going to look at our second lesson here online. It's still chapter 1, lesson 6 in our textbook. So chapter 1, lesson 6 is about drawing a graph of a pattern. And I'm on page 30, and we'll be working page 30 to 32 when I work through this lesson. So you can kind of refer to that textbook that's online, or maybe you have yours at home right now. And I'm going to give you an example. So the stuff that we were doing earlier was learning how to graph points, graph coordinates or ordered pairs, and there was no real pattern to it. They were just kind of all over the place. And that was just getting us better at understanding how much do we move to the right and how much do we move up, and that's where we place a point. So that's what that lesson was about. Now we're going to get into lessons about, we still want to be able to do that, but we want to recognize patterns. And a pattern in this case is a straight line. So when we graph these, we place them on the grid here, we should notice if there's a straight line or not. If there's a straight line, that means there's a pattern. If it's not a straight line, if the points are all over the place, there's no pattern. So we're going to start to work with patterns. So let's see what this one looks like. So you can see I've labeled the bottom 1 to 5, the side 1 to 12. I know that these are not the same distance apart, but they're still going to give us an idea of whether it's a straight line or not. So in this case, this is going to work for us. 1, 3, 2, 5, 3, 7, 4, 9, and 5, 11. So those are the 5 points that they gave us. And we can kind of see the straight line pattern that they make. Okay. Now when there's a pattern, we want to be able to recognize what the pattern is. Now this is what we did with our input-output machines for about a week. And we really tried to focus on how do I know what's happening to the first one, we call it the input, to get to the second one, we call that the output. And when you look at this, they're all going up by 2. So from 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 9. So that usually means we multiply by 2. It's part of the pattern. But this times 2 is only 2. So then we have to then add 1. Now does that work for the rest of them? 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Yep. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. Yep. So the pattern rule works. So they'll ask us, what's the relationship? What's the relationship between the input and the output? How are they related? Well, here's our pattern that we just figured out. Okay? So how are they related? Well, the input is multiplied by 2. Then you add 1 to get the output. That's the relationship between these two. As you get more advanced into your math, in grades 7, 8, 9, 10, you're going to be able to put this into an expression and a graph, and you're going to be able to figure out what this line looks like as it keeps extending up or even down. Okay, we're not going to get into those negative numbers in grade 6. We just want to learn how to place points on a graph and figure out a relationship. Okay, so let's look at a couple of questions that are in the book, and we'll try to get you doing some on your own. But I want to do a couple of examples with you. So that was the relationship for this one. Okay. Let's go to the book. We're going to go to question number 2 on page 31. And I'm going to do A for you. We're not going to do the first ones. Those are kind of blocks and patterns and different things that we want to try to get right into the real nuts and bolts of this, and that's into the graphing. Okay? So it gives us the input and the output as 1, 3, 2, 6, 3, 9, and 412. Those are the coordinates it gives us. Those are the points we want to plot. And it asks us describe the relationship. Okay, so 1, 3, 2, 6, 3, 9, 4, 12. Oh, there is a relationship because there's a straight line. So what is the relationship? Well, sometimes it's hard to just look at the graph. It's much easier to look at the numbers for us to start with. Okay, so this is going up by 3s. Oh, so whenever we see the pattern of going up by 2, 3, 4, that's what we multiply it by. So we multiply it by 3. 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9. Oh, that's it. That's the relationship. So how is the input related to the output? Times the input by 3. There's the relationship. And that would be how you would do question 2A. Now I want you to give a try to 2B and look at it. It's got the input of 1, output of 5. 2, 6, 3, 7, 4, 8. Well, those are only going up by 1. So we're not going to multiply by 1 because we know we're going to get the same answer. So could you add or subtract a number to get to the next one? If I added 4 to 1, I'd get 5. If I add 4 to 2, I'd get 6. If I added 4 to 3, I'd get 7. The pattern rule, or the relationship, is adding 4 to the input will give you the output. And then you graph it. You put it on a grid. Okay? If you turn the page, question 3, 4, and 5 are going to be very similar. You're either going to be given coordinates and asked to graph them and find a relationship, or you're going to be given so either coordinates and graph them, or you're going to be given a graph and asked to come up with the coordinates. And it's always about trying to find that relationship. That's that deeper level thinking, trying to find the relationship. That's the hard part. Okay? I think once you've kind of started to understand about how to put these on the grid and take them off, that's not too bad. That's kind of a repetitive type thing. But finding the relationship is always the tough one. So let's give this 3A a try. Okay, it has a graph there. I'm not going to graph it out here because they've already got a graph for you, but I'm going to write down the coordinates. And if I look, the first one is 2 and then up 3. So 2, 3. The second one is over 4, up 7. Okay, then it is over 6, up 11. And over 8 and up 15. So there's our coordinates that we pull off the graph. And now we want to try to come up with a relationship for these. Well, here's a little tricky thing. When we were learning input and output and finding relations, the input would always go up by 1. But you notice these are going up by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, not just 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a little bit trickier. So we have to try to do some maths, some trial and error. We're going to make some mistakes, but in the end we want to try to come up with the pattern or the relationship. So let me erase this relationship and let's come up with a new one. So since it's not just going up by 1s, we're going to have to try multiplying and then adding or subtracting by a certain number to see what we can get. And so here's something I'm noticing. I like to try lower numbers, like multiply by 2, multiply by 3. I see that it's going up by 4s, but this is going up by 2s. So if it was just going up by 1s, would this be like 3, 5 and 5, 9? So if we can get these going up by 1s, then these are only going up by 2s. So let's try multiplying by 2. So let's take this input, multiply it by 2. It's a nice low number. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, then I'd have to subtract 1 to get that. 4 times 2 is 8, minus 1 is 7. 6 times 2 is 12, minus 1 is 11. Oh, I kind of found the relationship here, I think. I didn't necessarily need these other little coordinates, but they could help. If you pick timesing it by 3. So 2 times 3 is 6. To get to this, you'd have to subtract 3. So 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 minus 3 does not equal 7. You'd say, oh, that pattern rule is wrong, and you'd have to come up with a new one. And this is the hard part. This is the difficult part, is finding that. And so the more questions we do, the better you're going to get at it. But in the end, the relationship, so the input is multiplied by 2, then subtract 1. That's the relationship for that one. I would challenge you to now do 3b and see if you can come up with the relationship. You'll notice in that one as well, it's going up by 2's in the input column. So it's going to be a little trickier. Okay, these are tricky ones. That's okay. Questions 4 and 5 are going to be very, doing the same type of thing. Very similar. Get some graph paper, use the grids, put the coordinates on there, try to come up with the relationship. Okay? Write an expression if you can. So, writing an expression, we'll use this one as an example. And we did some of this last week with Math 6, and this is the most difficult stuff. This is getting you ready for that grade 9 and 10 math for sure. Is taking this information and making an expression. An expression means there's an equal sign. Okay? And you make an equation. So in order to make an expression, you need two variables. Okay? So we can give these any letter we want. We practiced this in class, and we were just picking any letters we wanted. We kind of wanted to avoid the letter 0 the letter O because it looks like a 0, or maybe the letter L because it looks like a 1. So we want to use letters that are easy to distinguish. So I'm just going to choose A and B. A and B. All of these are A's and all of these are B's. And when we make an expression, we learned that we wanted to always equal the second coordinate, so B. So it's going to equal B. And how is A related to B? The relationship's right here. We've kind of figured it out. A, we have to multiply it by 2. So brackets means multiply. And then subtract 1. Okay, this thing is called an expression or an equation. An expression or an equation. You could also say it's kind of a relationship. They're all the same thing. They're all kind of intertwined. And so on question 4, they're asking you to take these points, graph them, make a grid, plot them, find the relationship, and then turn it into an expression. Ooh, those are the two difficult parts of this. And you'll want to figure out what letters you want to use. It says figure number is the first one, so maybe you want to use N. And the second one is number of shapes, so maybe you want to use S. But I'll leave that up to you. Question 5 is very similar, so you're practicing the same stuff. After you've practiced a few, if you're still struggling, I've given your parents some worksheets that have some more explanation and some more examples that you can work your way through before you do your EP. So your EP6. And your EP6 I'll send out to you. That'll look like this. First one, so I want you to do both questions. There's only 2 questions. Is graph the table Describe the relationship like this or like this. Write an expression. So write something like this. And then find out what happens if the input is 8. What is your output? And obviously you should use your expression to find that out. Question 2 is make an input-output table for this graph. So you want to come up with this. Make these coordinates based on what the graph looks like on your page. Okay, so that would be your assignment that you're going to hand in to me. I would ask you to do some questions on page 31 and 32. You can also do some questions that I'll give out to your parents. I'll email them in kind of a workbook form. Those will also prepare you for the EP. And I've also got a website that I'm going to give you access to called Mathletics. And you'll need a password, which I'll send to you. And you'll log on to Mathletics, and there'll be some more equations and expressions and graphs and coordinates that you can do on there to get you ready for maybe the EP, or for sure get you ready for an exam that we would write. And we won't write that exam until after the break, January sometime. Okay? So that's Chapter 1, Lesson 6 on drawing a graph of a pattern. So it should have a pattern this time. And I'll get the next one ready, which is our EP7, which is balancing scales. It'll be a pretty short one. And then that'll take us to the end of this unit. So good luck with this. If you have questions, you can either email me or try to work on some of the sheets that I provide that have additional examples, or the Mathletics program that can kind of lead you through some instruction as well. And if worse comes to worse, you can always come back in January and ask me some questions there. Okay? So good luck with this one.